The real reason that some paleo-anthropologists don't want to use the term Cro Magnon is because when you look closer at the fossils and the genetics, one thing becomes clear. The simple story of migration and replacement doesn't make sense. Even as the picture of Neanderthals becomes richer, more human, and in many ways more admirable, the archaeological and genetic record still converges on a stark outcome. They were ultimately replaced across Europe and Western Eurasia by the populations traditionally grouped under the name Cro Magnon, the early Upper Paleolithic Homo sapiens associated with industries such as the Aurignacian, whose expansion after roughly 40,000 years ago marks one of the most decisive transitions in prehistory. Not because it represents the sudden appearance of intelligence where none existed before, but because it reflects a shift in scale, connectivity, and cumulative culture that appears to have reached a critical threshold as these incoming populations brought with them broader social networks, faster innovation cycles, long-distance exchange systems, and symbolic traditions expressed in cave art, personal ornaments, and rapidly evolving toolkits, creating a cultural and demographic momentum that smaller, more regionally fragmented Neanderthal populations could not match. So that over several thousand years of overlap, interaction, and interbreeding, the balance tipped irreversibly, and the Cro Magnon horizon spread across the continent, not as a simple wave of superiority in any single trait, but as the culmination of a system, technological, social, and demographic, that functioned at a higher level of integration, ultimately absorbing, replacing, and in a genetic sense, partially preserving the Neanderthals within it, leaving behind a legacy in both DNA and deep human memory, even as the distinct Neanderthal populations themselves disappeared. However, some believe that the early anthropologists who first described Cro Magnon skeletons had it wrong, that they projected their own biases onto a set of bones and artifacts, and imagined a level of distinction that did not truly exist. Yet as the archaeological and genetic evidence has accumulated, a more uncomfortable conclusion has begun to take shape. Because while those early interpretations were often crude and incomplete, they were not entirely misguided in recognizing that something unusual appears in the European Upper Paleolithic record, a concentration of anatomical robustness, cultural complexity, and symbolic expression that stands out even within the broader story of Homo sapiens, and which forces us to confront the possibility that what they were seeing was not an illusion of superiority, but a real and measurable shift in how human populations were organized, how they innovated, and how they expressed themselves, a shift that did not emerge in isolation from the rest of the world, but which nevertheless reached a level of visibility and intensity in Cro Magnon contexts that continues to define our understanding of what fully developed human culture looks like. There is a moment in the European archaeological record when the lights come on all at once, when the darkness of the Middle Paleolithic gives way not gradually, but with a kind of explosive clarity, and that moment is marked by the arrival of the people long known as Cro Magnons, the early Upper Paleolithic Homo sapiens, whose skeletons, tools, ornaments, and art appear across the continent between roughly 45 and 30,000 years ago, leaving behind a signal so strong, so unmistakable, that it has shaped every discussion of human evolution ever since. Because these were not merely another population of humans moving into a new territory, but a constellation of traits, biological, cultural, and technological, that together created the impression of a threshold being crossed, a point at which something qualitatively different had emerged. The Cro Magnon skeletons themselves have always been part of that impression, because they are often tall, long-limbed, and in many cases possess large cranial capacities that overlap with, and sometimes exceed, both modern human averages and those of Neanderthals, producing a morphology that early researchers interpreted as both robust and fully modern, with high foreheads, reduced brow ridges, and chins that distinguish them from earlier populations. Yet with a bodily strength and stature that speak to lives lived under demanding conditions, and this combination, modern cranial shape with physical robustness, has often been read as a kind of peak expression of human anatomy in the Ice Age environment of Europe. But the bones alone are not what created the enduring fascination, because what truly sets these populations apart is the cultural record that appears alongside them. A record that is not just richer than what came before, but organized in a way that suggests rapid innovation and transmission, as seen in the Aurignacian and Gravettian industries, where standardized blade production, bone and antler tools, and finely crafted points indicate a level of planning and specialization that operates at a different scale than earlier technologies, and when this is combined with the sudden proliferation of personal ornaments, beads, pendants, carved objects, and the appearance of figurative art, including some of the earliest known sculptures and cave paintings, the overall effect is not merely incremental change, but a transformation in how humans interacted with their environment and with each other. The cave art alone would be enough to mark this transition, because sites such as those in southwestern France and northern Spain reveal images that are not only technically sophisticated, but conceptually complex, depicting animals in motion, layered compositions, and in some cases abstract signs whose meanings are still debated. And these are not isolated occurrences, but part of a broader pattern that extends across regions, suggesting networks of communication and shared symbolic systems. And when one considers the time depth over which these traditions persisted, evolving yet maintaining recognizable elements, it becomes clear that we are looking at cultures capable of cumulative knowledge, where innovations are not lost but built upon, creating a trajectory that accelerates over time. This acceleration is perhaps the most important feature of the Cro Magnon horizon because it implies a social structure that can support and transmit increasingly complex behaviors. And this in turn requires not just individual intelligence, but group-level organization, including teaching, imitation, and possibly forms of language that allow for precise communication of ideas, techniques, and meanings. And while language leaves no direct fossil trace, the indirect evidence from tool standardization to symbolic artifacts strongly suggests that these populations operated within communication systems capable of sustaining high levels of cultural complexity. Yet it is precisely here, at the point where Cro Magnon culture appears most distinctive, that the broader question of human origins becomes more complicated rather than less, because the emergence of such a complex cultural system raises the issue of how and where it developed, and whether it represents a sudden innovation in one region or the culmination of processes unfolding across multiple interconnected populations. And this is where the traditional framing of human evolution as a simple linear expansion from a single geographic origin begins to strain under the weight of the evidence. The reason for this strain is not that Africa lacks evidence of early Homo sapiens. There is fossil and archaeological material demonstrating deep roots there, but that the specific combination of traits seen in the European Upper Paleolithic appears in a particularly concentrated and rapid form, leading to questions about how those traits were assembled, whether through local development, interaction with other populations such as Neanderthals, or through the merging of multiple lineages over time. And these questions remain active areas of research precisely because the archaeological record does not present a single unambiguous pathway. Genetics adds another layer to this complexity because while it confirms that modern humans share common ancestry and that populations in Eurasia carry a subset of that diversity, it also reveals patterns of admixture and structure that complicate any attempt to reduce human evolution to a single migration event. As seen in the presence of Neanderthal DNA in Eurasian populations, the evidence for multiple episodes of interbreeding and the identification of deeply divergent lineages that contributed to modern genomes at different times, creating a picture of human history that is more network-like than tree-like. For the Cro Magnon population specifically, genetic data from early European individuals shows that they were part of this broader web, carrying ancestry that reflects both earlier Homo sapiens lineages and admixture with Neanderthals, including light pigmentation genes, and that their descendants contributed to later European populations in complex ways, with multiple waves of migration and replacement occurring over tens of thousands of years. Meaning that even within Europe, the story is not one of a single population persisting unchanged, but of successive groups interacting and reshaping the genetic landscape. What makes Cro Magnon stand out then is not that they existed in isolation or that they represent a fundamentally separate branch of humanity, but that at a particular moment in time, in a particular region, the conditions aligned in such a way that cultural and demographic processes reached a level of intensity that produced a record unlike anything seen before. And this can give the impression of an apex, not in a hierarchical sense, but in the sense of a peak in observable complexity within the available evidence. This distinction matters because it allows us to recognize the extraordinary nature of the upper Paleolithic record without resorting to narratives of superiority that are not supported by the data, and it also highlights the role of context, environmental, social and demographic, in shaping human behavior, as the Ice Age landscapes of Europe, with their fluctuating climates and rich megafaunal resources, may have created pressures and opportunities that favored certain kinds of innovation and cooperation. At the same time, it is important to note that other regions also show evidence of complex behavior, even if it is not always preserved or expressed in the same ways, because preservation conditions, research history, and sampling all influence what we see in the archaeological record. And this means that the apparent uniqueness of Cro Magnon culture may in part reflect the visibility of certain kinds of evidence, such as cave art in limestone regions, rather than an absolute absence of complexity elsewhere. Even so, the European Upper Paleolithic remains a critical case study, because it demonstrates what humans are capable of under certain conditions, and it provides a detailed record of how cultural systems can expand, diversify, and persist over time, offering insights into the mechanisms of human adaptation that are relevant far beyond that specific region or period. In the end, the significance of Cro Magnons lies not in overturning one model of human origins in favor of another, but in forcing us to confront the complexity of the evidence, to recognize that human evolution cannot be reduced to a single narrative, and to appreciate that the qualities we associate with modern humanity, art, symbolism, technology, social organization, emerge through processes that were dynamic, interconnected, and still only partially understood, leaving open questions that continue to drive research and debate. And perhaps that is the most important takeaway, because the story of Cro Magnons is not a closed chapter, but an invitation to rethink how we interpret the past, to move beyond simple binaries and toward a more nuanced understanding of human evolution as a tapestry woven from multiple threads, each contributing to the patterns we see today, and each reminding us that the path to modern humanity was neither straightforward nor inevitable, but shaped by a series of contingencies that we are only beginning to fully unravel. Thanks for watching.